Jake Morrison sat alone at the corner table of the Blue Moon Cantina. The drink in his hand had grown warm hours ago, but he did not care. Around him, aliens from 12 different worlds whispered and pointed. Their eyes showed fear when they looked at him. Fear and something else. Respect, maybe. Or terror. The cantina was on Nexus Prime, a trade station that floated between the stars. It was neutral ground where humans and aliens could meet safely, but safe was a word that meant different things now. 20 years had passed since the war ended, but the galaxy still remembered. They all remembered what humans could do when pushed too far. A young woman walked toward his table. She moved carefully like someone approaching a sleeping predator. Her press badge showed she was from the Galactic News Network. Lisa Kane, it read. Human. Like him. But young. Too young to remember the war. Commander Morrison, she asked. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the nervousness underneath. I'm Lisa Kane. I sent you the message about the interview. Jake looked up at her. She was maybe 25 years old, born after the war started. She had never seen what humans could become when their children were murdered. She had never heard the screams that still echoed in Jake's dreams. Sit down, he said. His voice was rough from years of shouting orders and breathing recycled air on warships. You want to know about the war, about why they look at us like that? He nodded toward the aliens at the other tables. Lisa sat down and pulled out a recording device. The galaxy has heard stories, she said. But most records from the war are classified. People say it changed everything, that it made humanity the most feared species in known space. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Feared. Yes, that's one word for it. He took a sip of his warm drink. You know what the Zephyrians called us before the war started? Soft mammals. Pink weaklings. They thought we would be easy to conquer. The reporter leaned forward. Tell me about first contact. How did it all begin? Jake's eyes went distant. He was seeing the past now, remembering things he had tried to forget. It was 22 years ago. I was just a lieutenant then, serving, on patrol duty near the edge of human space. Captain Ryan Walsh was commanding the UES Discovery. Good man. Fair captain. He believed in peace. The cantina noise faded as Jake spoke. His voice took on the tone of someone telling a story that still hurt to remember. We had been exploring for months, looking for new worlds to settle. Humanity was growing fast, and Earth was getting crowded. We had 3 colony ships with us. The New Hope, the Bright Future, and the Tomorrow's Dream. 50,000 people total. Families, children, people looking for a new start. Lisa's recording device hummed quietly between them. Around them, the aliens continued their whispered conversations, but Jake could feel them listening. Then we found them, Jake continued. The Zephyrians, 7-foot-tall reptiles with technology that was centuries ahead of ours. They had controlled 12 star systems for over 1,000 years. Warriors, they called themselves. Proud fighters who lived by something they called the honor code. Jake's hand tightened around his glass. Captain Walsh tried to make peaceful contact. He sent messages in every language our computers could translate. Mathematical formulas, pictures of Earth, music. He wanted them to know we came in peace. The old soldier paused, his eyes still focused on memories that played out behind his closed eyelids. The Zephyrian fleet commander was named Crixtal the Proud. That was how he introduced himself when he finally answered our messages. Crixtal the Proud, conqueror of worlds, defender of the honor. Lisa waited, sensing that the important part was coming. You know what he said to Captain Walsh? Jake asked. His voice was getting quieter, more dangerous. He said that soft mammals had no right to travel among the stars. He said that weak species should stay on their homeworlds and serve their betters. He gave us one chance to turn around and never come back. Jake finished his drink in one gulp. Captain Walsh tried to negotiate. He explained that we were just looking for empty worlds to settle, that we had no interest in conflict. But Crixtal had already made his decision. He said that humans needed to learn their place in the galaxy. The reporter's face was pale now. She was beginning to understand where this story was going. They opened fire without another word, Jake said. No warning, no declaration of war, they just started shooting. The Discovery had military shields, so we survived the first attack. But the colony ships... He shook his head. They were civilian vessels. No weapons. No armor. 50,000 people who just wanted a new home. Jake stood up and walked to the cantina's large window. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. I watched those ships die, he said. Watched them break apart in space. Watched the bodies of children float past our windows. The Zephyrians didn't even try to rescue survivors. They just kept shooting until there was nothing left but debris. Lisa had stopped taking notes. Her hands were shaking slightly. Captain Walsh sent a message back to Earth. Jake continued. Just 4 words. They killed our children. Then we ran. The Discovery was fast, but not fast enough to fight a whole Zephyrian fleet. We barely made it home. Jake turned back to face the reporter. His eyes were cold now, like winter on a dead world. 3 days later, Earth's response came back through subspace radio. It wasn't addressed to Captain Walsh or to me. It was broadcast, on all frequencies aimed at Zephyrian space. The cantina had gone completely quiet now. Even the aliens had stopped talking to listen. The message was simple, Jake said. Just one sentence. You have made a grave mistake. That was all. But somehow, those 5 words carried more threat than any declaration of war. Lisa found her voice. What happened next? Jake smiled, and for the first time since she had met him, it looked genuine. But it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator remembering a successful hunt. Next, he said, next the galaxy learned what humans do when someone murders their children. Next, Admiral Kate Sullivan got her orders from the Human Coalition. One directive: end the threat permanently. Jake sat back down at the table. Around them, the alien patrons were beginning to leave. They had heard enough. That's when the real war started, Jake said. That's when the Zephyrians learned why you should never attack something that fights back. Lisa Kane stared at Jake Morrison across the table. The old soldier's face showed no emotion, but his hands were steady on his empty glass. Around them, the cantina had grown quieter. The few aliens still there kept looking over with nervous eyes. Tell me about the first strike, Lisa said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Jake nodded slowly. 6 months after the colony ships died, Admiral Kate Sullivan assembled the largest fleet in human history. 200 warships. Every gun, every missile, every fighter that Earth could build. But the ships weren't the scary part. He paused, remembering. The scary part was Lieutenant Colonel Alex Turner and his ground forces, the 7th Assault Division. 3,000 of the meanest humans ever born. They had trained for one thing: fighting aliens who thought humans were weak. Lisa leaned forward. What made them different? Jake's eyes grew distant again. Other species. In the galaxy fight with honor codes. Rules about how war should be conducted. The Zephyrians had fought wars for centuries, always following the same patterns. Big fleets meet in space. Armies line up on planets. Winners take prisoners. Losers surrender with dignity. Jake shook his head. Humans don't fight like that. We learned our lessons in wars against each other. Wars where survival mattered more than honor. The old soldier stood up and walked to the window again. Outside, a Zephyrian merchant ship was docking at the station. Jake watched it with eyes that held old hatred. The first battle was at Zephyr 4, he said. A mining world with 2 million Zephyrian civilians. Their military expected us to attack the orbital defenses first. Standard procedure. Instead, Colonel Turner landed his troops on the dark side of the planet. Lisa was writing notes now, trying to capture every word. The Zephyrians had never seen guerrilla warfare. Jake continued. Turner's forces hit supply convoys. Destroyed. Communication towers. Poisoned water supplies. They didn't attack the enemy army, they attacked everything that kept the enemy army running. Jake turned back to face her. Dr. Michelle Barnes was with Turner's forces. Xenobiologist, smartest woman I ever met. She had studied Zephyrian biology for months after first contact, found their weaknesses. The reporter felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of weaknesses? Diseases, Jake said simply. Earth bacteria that couldn't hurt humans but made Zephyrians very sick. Dr. Barnes put those bacteria in their food, supplies, in their water, in the air systems of their cities. Jake sat back down. His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. Within 2 weeks, half the planet's population was too sick to fight. The other half was taking care of the sick. The Zephyrian military had to choose between fighting us and saving their people. Lisa's pen had stopped moving. That's biological warfare. Yes, Jake said. It is. And it worked. The cantina felt colder now. Even the background music seemed quieter. The Zephyrian fleet commander sent a message to Colonel Turner. Jake continued. Demanded that he follow the galactic rules of war. Said that using disease weapons was dishonorable. Against the codes that civilized species followed. Jake smiled that cold smile again. Turner sent back a recording. Just him, standing in front of a pile of debris from one of our destroyed colony ships. He said, "You want to talk about honor? You murdered 50,000 of our children. We're just returning the favor." Lisa felt sick. What happened to the prisoners? What prisoners? Jake asked. The Zephyrians expected to be treated according to galactic conventions. Expected clean cells, proper food, medical care. Expected to be exchanged when the war ended. The old soldier's voice grew harder. But humans never agreed to follow alien rules. Commander Ben Foster was in charge of prisoner operations. He put captured Zephyrians to work in the mines they had built. Made them fix the damage their own weapons had caused. Fed them the same poisoned food they had been eating. Jake leaned back in his chair. The galaxy was watching by then. Other species started sending messages to both sides, trying to mediate, trying to get humans to follow proper war procedures. Lisa looked up from her notes. Did Earth respond? Admiral Sullivan sent one message to the Galactic Defense Council, Jake said. Short and simple. We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. Stay out of our way. The reporter could hear her own heartbeat in the silence that followed. That's when the other species got scared, Jake continued. The Andromedans pulled their trade ships out of human space. The Centauri Collective canceled all diplomatic meetings. Even the peaceful Etherians started building defense platforms near their borders. Jake gestured toward the aliens in the cantina. Look at them. 20 years later and they still watch us like we might explode. That fear started during the second month of the war. Lisa followed his gaze. A group of Andromedans at a nearby table were whispering urgently. One of them kept glancing at Jake with wide, nervous eyes. The Zephyrians called for help, Jake said. Sent messages to every allied species. These humans are savages, they said. They don't follow the rules. They need to be stopped before they become a threat to everyone. Jake's laugh was bitter. But nobody came to help. Other species started studying human military history, started learning about our wars against each other. The more they learned, the more scared they became. The old soldier finished his second drink. Dr. Frank Lee was part of a human diplomatic team back then. He reported that alien governments were having emergency meetings, not about stopping the war, but about what to do if humans won. Lisa looked confused. If humans won, weren't the Zephyrians stronger? On paper, yes, Jake said. Better technology, more ships, bigger population. But they were fighting by rules we had never agreed to follow. They expected honor. We gave them efficiency. Jake stood up to leave. By the end of the second month, something had changed in the galaxy. The Galactic Defense Council passed the first human protocol, emergency procedures for dealing with human military forces. Lisa gathered her notes quickly. What kind of procedures? Jake paused at the cantina door. Simple ones. If humans declare war on your species, evacuate all civilians immediately. Don't try to negotiate, don't expect mercy, just run and hope they let you live. The old soldier looked back at her one more time. That protocol is still in effect today. 20 years later, want to know why? Lisa nodded, though she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Because the war was just getting started, Jake said, and the galaxy hadn't seen anything yet. He walked out into the corridor, leaving Lisa alone with her notes and the frightened whispers of aliens who still remembered what humans could do when their children died. Lisa Kane found Jake Morrison the next day at the same table in the Blue Moon Cantina. He was staring out the window at the stars, a fresh drink in his hand. The aliens in the cantina gave his table even more space than before. Word had spread about their conversation. "You came back," Jake said without looking at her. "I need to hear the rest," Lisa said, sitting down across from him. "What happened after the human protocol was created?" Jake turned his attention to her. His eyes looked older today, like talking about the war had aged him overnight. The real war started then. What came before was just the opening act. He took a slow sip of his drink. General Amanda Cross took over strategic planning 6 months into the conflict. She called a meeting of all human military commanders. I was there as Admiral Sullivan's aide. Lisa turned on her recording device. Around them, the cantina seemed to hold its breath. General Cross stood up in front of a room full of officers, Jake continued, and said 3 words that changed everything. Total war doctrine. That was when we stopped pretending this was a normal conflict. The old soldier's voice dropped lower. She explained it simply. We weren't just fighting to defeat the Zephyrian military. We were fighting to make sure they could never threaten humanity again. Ever. Lisa felt the temperature in the room seem to drop. What did that mean? It meant Captain Steve Martin and his orbital bombardment fleet got new orders, Jake said. Not just hit military targets, hit everything. Factories, farms, schools, hospitals. If it kept Zephyrian society running, it was a target. Jake stood up and began pacing by the window. The galaxy watched in horror as human ships systematically destroyed entire worlds. Not just conquered them, destroyed them, made them unable to support life. The reporter looked down at her notes, trying to process what she was hearing. How could the military justify targeting civilians? Jake stopped pacing and looked at her with cold eyes. 50,000 dead children justify a lot of things. General, Cross put it simply. They started this war by killing our innocents. We'll end it by making sure they can't kill anymore. He sat back down. Major Holly Stewart was running special operations by then. Her teams were different from regular soldiers. They spoke Zephyrian languages, knew their culture, their fears. Lisa leaned forward. What did they do? Psychological warfare, Jake said. Stewart's people would infiltrate Zephyrian communication networks and broadcast recordings. Sounds of human children screaming as their colony ships died. Messages from the dead, asking why the Zephyrians had killed them. The old soldier's voice became distant. They also spread false information, made the Zephyrians think their own government was planning to surrender, made them believe their allies had abandoned them, turned their own propaganda against them. Jake paused to finish his drink. But the worst part was what Major Stewart called escalation psychology. Her teams would study Zephyrian military leaders, learn their families, their fears, their weaknesses. Lisa's pen had stopped moving. She was afraid to ask, but she had to know. What did they do with that information? They used it, Jake said simply. If a Zephyrian commander hesitated to attack human forces, Stewart's people would send him pictures of his family. Not threats exactly, just pictures, with messages like, "We know where they live." The cantina was completely silent now. Even the background music had stopped. The Zephyrians tried one last major offensive, Jake continued. Crixtal the Proud gathered every ship he could find, called in favors from allied species, built the largest war fleet in galactic history. Jake's eyes grew bright with a terrible memory. They attacked Kepler Station, our main supply depot. Thought if they could cut our supply lines, they could force us to negotiate. Lisa found her voice. What happened? The Battle of Kepler Station, Jake said. 3 days of fighting that changed how the galaxy thinks about warfare. Admiral Carl Hayes was commanding our defense fleet. Good man, but he had orders from General Cross. Jake stood up again, this time walking to the cantina's bar. He ordered another drink, then continued talking while the bartender poured. Hayes let the Zephyrian fleet get close, he said. Let them think they were winning. Then he activated weapons that had never been used in galactic warfare. The old soldier returned to the table with his fresh drink. Antimatter bombs, quantum. Viruses that could destroy entire computer networks. Weapons that didn't just kill enemy soldiers, but made their ships uninhabitable for centuries. Lisa's face had gone pale. That's against galactic law. What law? Jake asked. Humans never signed those treaties. We never agreed to limit our weapons. Why should we fight with one hand tied behind our backs? He took a long drink. The Zephyrian fleet was destroyed in 6 hours, not defeated. Destroyed. Every ship turned into radioactive debris. 40,000 Zephyrian warriors dead. Jake looked out the window again. But that wasn't the worst part. Dr. Peter Blake was with the refugee populations by then, studying how the war was affecting civilian Zephyrians. The reporter waited for him to continue. He found something the galaxy had never seen before, Jake said. An entire species developing trauma just from fighting against humans. Zephyrian. Civilians were having nightmares about creatures they had never seen. Children were afraid to sleep because they dreamed of human soldiers. Jake's voice became softer, more thoughtful. Dr. Blake called it species-wide post-traumatic stress disorder. The idea of fighting humans had become so terrifying that it was breaking their minds. Lisa looked up from her notes. How did the galactic community react? Panic, Jake said. The Galactic Defense Council held emergency sessions every day. Other species started pulling their military forces back from anywhere near human space. Trade stopped. Diplomacy stopped. Everyone was afraid we might turn on them next. The old soldier finished his drink and stood up to leave. 3 weeks after Kepler Station, the Zephyrian Military Command sent a message to General Cross. Not a surrender. Not a negotiation, a plea. Lisa gathered her things quickly, not wanting him to leave before finishing the story. What did they say? Jake paused at the cantina door. They begged us to stop, said they would give us anything we wanted. Territory, resources, technology. They just wanted the killing to end. He looked back at her one more time. General Cross sent back a single-word response. No. Jake walked out into the corridor, leaving Lisa alone with the weight of what she had heard. Around her, the alien patrons were finishing their drinks and leaving quickly. None of them wanted to stay in the same room where human warfare had been discussed. The young reporter sat alone, staring at her notes and wondering how much worse the story could get. Tomorrow she would learn about the final phase of the war, the part that made the galaxy whisper humanity's name in terror even 20 years later. 3 days later, Lisa Kane waited at the same table in the Blue Moon Cantina. Jake Morrison was late, and she was beginning to worry he wouldn't come. The story he was telling was getting darker with each part, and she could see it was taking a toll on the old soldier. When Jake finally arrived, he looked tired, more tired than before. He sat down without ordering a drink and stared at the table for a long moment. This part is the hardest to tell, he said quietly. This is the part that made the galaxy afraid of us forever. Lisa turned on her recording device. The cantina was nearly empty today. Word had spread about their conversations, and most aliens were avoiding the place entirely. After the Zephyrians begged for mercy, Jake began. General Cross called another meeting. But this time it wasn't just military commanders. Politicians from Earth were there too. Scientists, historians. They were planning something bigger than anyone had imagined. Jake finally looked up at Lisa. His eyes held a sadness she hadn't seen before. Colonel Nancy Price was put in charge of occupation forces. She was a logistics expert, good at organizing things, making systems work efficiently. The old soldier paused, gathering his thoughts. Price's job wasn't just to defeat the remaining Zephyrian forces. Her job was to make sure the Zephyrian species could never threaten humanity again. Ever. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. What did that mean? It meant Lieutenant Sam Davis and his technical teams were sent to every Zephyrian world, Jake said. Their orders were simple. Find every piece of military technology. every weapons factory, every research facility, not to capture them, to understand them completely. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, a Zephyrian merchant was arguing with station security about docking fees. The alien's voice was high and nervous even over such a small matter. Davis and his people didn't just take Zephyrian technology, Jake continued. They reverse-engineered everything, learned how it worked. Then they built countermeasures, weapons designed specifically to destroy Zephyrian ships, viruses that could shut down Zephyrian computers, biological agents that only affected Zephyrian physiology. The reporter was writing frantically, trying to capture every word. Why go to such extremes? Jake turned back to face her. Because humans think long-term. We learned from our own history that defeating an enemy once isn't enough. They might rebuild. They might come back stronger. The only way to be truly safe is to make sure they can never be a threat again. He sat back down, his voice becoming more clinical. But the technology was just the beginning. Colonel Price implemented what she called bloodline tracking. Every Zephyrian family was cataloged, their genetic patterns recorded, their locations monitored. Lisa looked up from her notes. They tracked entire families? For generations, Jake said. The computers Colonel Price built could predict which Zephyrian children might grow up to become military leaders, which ones had the genetic markers for aggression, which ones might someday want revenge against humanity. The old soldier's voice was flat now, emotionless. Those children were marked, not killed, just watched. Forever. If any of them ever showed signs of organizing resistance, human agents would visit their families. Lisa's pen had stopped moving. What kind of visits? Quiet ones, Jake said. Dr. Frank Lee documented the process. Human agents would simply appear at a Zephyrian home. They wouldn't threaten anyone. They would just stand there for a few minutes, then leave. The message was clear. We know who you are, where you live, and what you're thinking. Jake ordered a drink from a passing server. When it arrived, he stared into it without drinking. But the worst part was what Lieutenant Davis called dead man switches, and he continued. Automated systems hidden throughout former Zephyrian space. Weapons platforms, computer viruses, biological agents, all dormant, waiting. Lisa found her voice. Waiting for what? Waiting for any sign that Zephyrians were rebuilding their military, Jake said. The systems were designed to activate automatically if they detected certain patterns. Too many ships gathering in one place. Too much metal being refined. Too many young Zephyrians joining together. The old soldier finally took a sip of his drink. If those systems ever activated, they would sterilize entire worlds. Not just destroy the military targets. Kill everything. Plants, animals, bacteria. Turn living worlds into dead rocks floating in space. The cantina felt colder now. Even the few remaining alien patrons were whispering more quietly. Ambassador Linda Moore tried to explain it to the Galactic Council, Jake continued. She called it species-level deterrence. The idea that the cost of attacking humanity would be so terrible that no rational species would ever try. Lisa looked up from her notes. How did the galaxy react? Terror, Jake said simply. Other species realized that humanity had moved beyond simple warfare. We had created a system where our enemies couldn't just be defeated. They could be erased from existence. Jake stood up and began pacing again. Dr. Ellen Gray was studying alien psychology during the occupation. She found that other species were changing their behavior just because of what humans had done to the Zephyrians. The reporter waited for him to continue. Trade routes were redesigned to avoid human space, Jake said. Not because of embargoes or sanctions, because alien ship captains were afraid to get too close to our territory. Military exercises were canceled if they happened anywhere near human systems. He stopped pacing and looked directly at Lisa. Entire species began rewriting their military doctrine, not to fight humans, but to avoid ever giving humans a reason to fight them. Jake sat back down. The Andromedans developed what they called Terra protocols. Emergency plans for what to do if humanity ever declared war on them. Step 1. Immediate. Evacuation of all civilians. Step 2. Complete military surrender. Step 3. Pray that humans would accept surrender instead of total destruction. Lisa's hands were shaking slightly as she wrote. Did these protocols work? They were never tested, Jake said. Because after what happened to the Zephyrians, no species has ever been stupid enough to attack humanity again. The old soldier finished his drink and prepared to leave. The war officially ended 14 months after it started, but the real end came when the last Zephyrian military commander sent a message to Colonel Price. Lisa gathered her things quickly. What did the message say? Jake paused at the cantina door. It wasn't a surrender. Surrenders can be taken back. It was an oath, a promise that no Zephyrian would ever again raise a weapon against a human being. Not just for now, forever. He looked back at her one more time. Colonel Price accepted the oath, but she also sent a response, a single sentence that every species in the galaxy has memorized by now. Lisa waited, knowing this was important. We will be watching, Jake said. 3 words that changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Jake walked out into the corridor, leaving Lisa alone with the terrible weight of what she had learned. Around her, the last few alien patrons finished their drinks and left. Quickly. None of them wanted to stay in a place where humanity's true nature had been discussed so openly. The young reporter sat alone, staring at her notes and wondering if the galaxy would ever feel safe again. Lisa Kane arrived at the Blue Moon Cantina for the final time. Jake Morrison was already there, sitting at their usual table. But something was different today. The cantina was completely empty except for them. The alien patrons had stopped coming, entirely. Last day, Jake said as she sat down. You ready to hear how this story ends? Lisa turned on her recording device one final time. I think so, though I'm not sure I want to know. Jake nodded. 20 years have passed since the war ended. 20 years since the Zephyrian species learned to whisper when they speak about humans. You want to know what those 20 years have been like? The old soldier gestured around the empty cantina. Look around. This place used to be full of traders from dozens of worlds. Now they avoid any station where humans might be present. That's our legacy. Lisa looked at her notes from the previous days. Tell me about the aftermath. What happened to the people who fought in the war? We came home, Jake said simply. Admiral Sullivan retired to a farm on New Kansas. General Cross took a job teaching military history. Colonel Price became a school administrator. We all tried to go back to normal lives. He paused, staring out the window at the empty docking bays. But normal was different now. Earth had changed. Humanity had changed. We had learned something about ourselves that we couldn't unlearn. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Captain Chris Bell commands routine patrol missions now. Nothing like the war fleets we used to run. But even his small ship carries more fear than the largest alien battleship. Lisa looked confused. What do you mean? Last month, Bell's ship encountered pirates attacking a merchant convoy. Jake explained. 7 pirate vessels against 1 human patrol ship. The pirates should have had every advantage. The old soldier turned back to face her. But when the pirates realized they were facing a human ship, they surrendered immediately. Didn't fire a shot. Didn't even try to run. They just stopped what they were doing and begged Bell not to hurt them. Jake sat back down. Bell told me later that the pirate captain was crying, a grown alien warrior crying like a child because he thought he was about to face human warfare. Lisa was writing notes, but her hands were unsteady. What did Captain Bell do? He arrested them, Jake said. Standard procedure, no violence needed. But the pirates spent the entire trip to prison, telling anyone who would listen about their narrow escape from the terrible humans. The old soldier smiled, but it was a sad smile. That story spread through the criminal networks within days. Now pirates avoid any shipping lane that might have human protection. Not because we patrol them more heavily. Just because the possibility exists. Jake ordered a drink from the automated serving system. The cantina's alien staff had stopped showing up for work days ago. Dr. Ellen Gray studies this phenomenon now, he continued. She calls it reputation warfare, the idea that our reputation has become a weapon more powerful than our actual ships and soldiers. Lisa looked up from her notes. Give me an example. The Centauri border conflict, Jake said. 2 alien species, fighting over mining rights in a disputed system. The war had been going on for 3 years, thousands dead on both sides. Jake took a sip of his drink. Then somebody suggested bringing in human mediators, not human soldiers, not human weapons, just human diplomats to help negotiate. The old soldier's voice became quieter. Both sides agreed to immediate ceasefire within hours of that suggestion, not because they wanted human help, because they were terrified of what might happen if they said no to humans. Lisa set down her pen. That's insane. That's our reality now, Jake said. Admiral Tony Clark, my old commander, runs the Strategic Planning Division. He told me that human involvement has prevented 17 separate interstellar wars in the past decade. Jake stood up and began pacing. Not through military action, not through threats, just by existing. Other species are so afraid of triggering our total war doctrine that they settle their disputes peacefully rather than risk human attention. The reporter found her voice. Is that good or bad? Jake stopped pacing and looked at her with tired eyes. I don't know anymore. We achieved perfect deterrence. No species will ever attack humanity again. But the cost was becoming something that the galaxy fears more than death itself. He sat back down and finished his drink. There are human children now who don't know why aliens look at them with such fear. Kids who were born after the war ended. They're growing up in a galaxy where their species name is whispered like a curse. Lisa looked around the empty cantina. What about the future? Will things ever go back to normal? Jake shook his head. Mrs. June Foster teaches at the primary school on New Earth. She has to explain to 6-year-old children why alien visitors sometimes run away when they see human faces. The old soldier's voice became softer. She tells them that a long time. Some bad aliens hurt human families, so human soldiers made sure those aliens could never hurt anyone again. She doesn't tell them how we did it. Jake stood up to leave for the final time. But those children will grow up knowing that their species is the most feared in the galaxy. They'll carry that knowledge with them forever. Lisa gathered her notes and recording equipment. Where does this end, Commander? Will the galaxy ever stop being afraid of us? Jake paused at the cantina door. I was in a meeting last week with other retired officers. Admiral Clark was there, General Cross, Colonel Price. We were talking about the same question. He looked back at her with eyes that held 20 years of regret. General Cross said something that stays with me. She said, we won the war so completely that we lost something else. We lost the possibility of ever being seen as anything other than monsters. Jake stepped into the corridor, then turned back one more time. You know what the real tragedy is? We're not monsters. We're just humans who were pushed too far, but the galaxy will never see the difference. Lisa watched him walk away down the empty corridor. Around her, the Blue Moon Cantina sat silent and abandoned. Outside the windows, alien ships were changing course to avoid the station entirely. The reputation of humanity had spread even to this neutral ground. She looked down at her notes, pages and pages of testimony about a war that lasted only 18 months, but changed the galaxy forever. The story of how humanity became so feared that their name was whispered in terror across 1,000 worlds. In her final report, Lisa Kane would write about the price of perfect victory, about how a species could win so completely that they lost their place in the community of civilized worlds, about how fear, once planted, could grow until it consumed everything around it. But that night, alone in her quarters, Lisa Kane did something she had never done before. She locked her door twice and checked the window seals before going to sleep. Because she had learned something in those 5 days of interviews, she had learned why the galaxy whispered humanity's name in terror. And for the first time in her life, she understood why they were right to be afraid. The blue light of Earth hung in the viewport as Olivia Martinez sipped her morning coffee. After 6 months on the lunar research base, the sight still took her breath away. She set down her mug and checked her schedule. Another day of studying lunar dust samples awaited her. Boring but necessary work. The alarm blared without warning. Red lights flashed across the station. Attention all personnel. Unknown object approaching lunar orbit. This is not a drill. Report to emergency stations. Olivia rushed to the command center, her heart pounding. Through the main window she saw it, a massive vessel unlike anything humans had built. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent metallic skin that seemed to change color as it moved. "Status report," demanded Director Alan Powell, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Sir, the object is slowing. It's taking up position. In stable orbit," said Communications Officer Ben Wright. "We're receiving a transmission." The room fell silent. First contact. After centuries of searching the stars, they had finally arrived. The main screen flickered to life. The being that appeared looked almost like a tall, thin human, but with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore what seemed to be an environmental suit with clear panels. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zeltur of the Galactic Concord. We come in peace and friendship." 3 weeks later, Olivia found herself aboard the alien vessel, now part of the human scientific delegation. The initial panic had given way to excitement and careful diplomacy. The aliens, calling themselves the Viridians, had translation technology that made communication surprisingly easy. "Dr. Martinez," Zeltur said, as they walked through a corridor with walls that seemed alive with subtle patterns of light. "Your species is most unusual." "How so?" Olivia asked, noticing how the ambassador kept his distance and never removed his protective suit. "Your planet..." Zeltur paused. "In all our explorations, we have never encountered sentient life evolving naturally on a Class 13 world." "Class 13? What does that mean?" The ambassador gestured to a large, circular room they were approaching. "Perhaps it would be easier to show you." The room darkened as they entered. Suddenly, stars surrounded them in a perfect holographic display. Zeltur touched a control panel and a classification system appeared. The Concord categorizes all worlds on a habitability scale. Class 1 through 5 are paradise worlds. Perfect temperature, minimal weather variation, low gravity, stable geology. He swept his hand and beautiful planets appeared. Most advanced civilizations live on these worlds, often terraformed to these specifications. More planets appeared. Class 6 through 9 are standard worlds, some challenges but generally comfortable, with minimal technological assistance. Olivia nodded, wondering where this was going. Class 10 through 12 are harsh worlds. Most require significant environmental protection to inhabit. The images showed planets with extreme conditions, heavy cloud cover, violent storms, volcanic activity. "And Class 13? Olivia asked. "Death worlds," Zeltur said simply. "Planets, so dangerous that most species cannot survive on them even with our most advanced protection." The hologram shifted to show Earth. "This must be a mistake," Olivia said. "Earth isn't particularly dangerous." Zeltur made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Dr. Martinez, your gravity is 1.3 times the galactic average for inhabited worlds. Your atmospheric pressure would crush many species. Your temperature variations are extreme. Your world is 71% covered in a corrosive solvent." "You mean water?" "Yes. Highly dangerous to many species, but most alarming are your seasonal transition events." "Seasons? You're afraid of our seasons?" "Your entire planet undergoes regular, massive environmental shifts. Plants die en masse, temperature swings of tens of degrees, precipitation changes, state. These would be apocalyptic events on most worlds." Olivia struggled to process this. "But that's just normal for us. We even look forward to seasonal changes." Zeltur's large eyes blinked slowly. "Which is why your species is as fascinating as your planet is terrifying. The Concord Scientific Assessment Committee wishes to study how humans have adapted to such conditions. They will arrive in 3 months." Meanwhile, Jack Holloway walked the familiar trail through Yellowstone National Park. Fall was coming. He could feel it in the morning chill and see it in the first yellow leaves appearing on the aspen trees. As park ranger, he loved this time of year. The summer crowds thinned, and the park transformed itself. Animals began preparing for winter, gathering food or getting ready to hibernate. The landscape would soon explode with color before going dormant. His radio crackled. "Jack, you there? Over." "Go ahead, Susan. You're not going to believe this, but we just got word from headquarters. Some kind of alien delegation is coming to Yellowstone. They want to see an undisturbed natural environment during season change." Jack stopped walking. "Is this a joke?" "Dead serious. They're sending a liaison to brief us tomorrow. Apparently these aliens think Earth is super dangerous and want to see why." Jack laughed. "Well, I guess we should put away the bear traps and volcano pits before they arrive." "Very funny. Just be at the visitor center at 0800 tomorrow." Jack put his radio away and looked around at the peaceful forest. Dangerous seemed pretty nice to him. He had no idea that his understanding of Earth's wilderness would soon become vital to humanity's standing in the galaxy. The next day, Jack sat in stunned silence as Dr. Olivia Martinez explained the situation to the assembled park staff. "So these aliens think a little snow is the end of the world?" asked Susan. "Their homeworlds don't have seasons," Olivia explained. "Most inhabited planets in the galaxy have been engineered to maintain constant conditions." "That sounds boring," Jack said. Olivia smiled. "That's why they're so interested in us. According to their research, species from variable environments adapt faster and are more resilient. They've never seen anything like Earth's seasonal cycles or how life here has evolved to take advantage of them." "So what do they want from us?" Jack asked. "They want to observe humans in their natural environment interacting with Earth's changing seasons. And they specifically requested seeing wilderness areas with minimal technology." Olivia looked directly at Jack. "That's where you come in. We need someone who can show them that what they consider deadly, we consider home." Jack looked around, at his colleagues, then back to Olivia. "When do they arrive?" 2 months, just in time for fall." The large shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with a gentle hum. Inside, 7 alien scientists clutched their seats, their environmental suits gleaming under the cabin lights. Dr. Louven, the head scientist, checked her instruments for the 5th time. "Atmospheric pressure increasing to dangerous levels," she announced. "Temperature variations detected. Everyone ensure your suits are sealed properly." Next to her, Zira, the youngest member of the scientific assessment committee, peered through the viewport. Clouds parted to reveal mountains and forests painted in red, orange, and gold. "It's beautiful," she whispered, earning disapproving looks from her colleagues. The shuttle landed in a clearing near Yellowstone's main research facility. Dr. Olivia Martinez waited alongside Jack Holloway and a small delegation of scientists and park officials. As the shuttle door opened, Jack noticed how cautiously the aliens moved, as if expecting danger from every direction. "Welcome to Earth," Olivia said with a warm smile. "And welcome to Yellowstone National Park." Dr. Louven stepped forward. She was taller than the others, with 4 slender arms and skin that shifted between shades of purple. The clear panel in her helmet revealed delicate features and large reflective eyes. "Dr. Martinez," she said, her voice coming through a translator device. "We appreciate your hospitality, though we remain concerned about the safety of this expedition." Jack stepped forward and extended his hand before remembering the aliens' strict no-contact protocol. He quickly converted the gesture to a wave. "Jack Holloway, Park Ranger. I'll be your guide during your stay." Dr. Louven's eyes narrowed. "You patrol this wilderness without protective equipment?" Jack looked down at his standard ranger uniform. "This is all the protection I need. Maybe a raincoat if the weather turns." The aliens exchanged glances. A shorter, stockier alien with orange-tinted skin stepped forward, waving what looked like a scanning device. "Impossible," he muttered. "This human's body contains no technological enhancements or protective systems." "That's right," Jack said. "Just plain old human biology." "Fascinating," said Zira, earning another sharp look from Dr. Louven. Inside the research facility, The aliens set up their equipment while Jack and Olivia prepared the presentation. The committee gathered around a large table, their posture stiff and alert. Before we begin our field observations, Dr. Leuven said, we must understand the full extent of the planetary dangers. Our preliminary scans indicate massive biological die-offs occurring across the northern hemisphere. Olivia nodded calmly. That's the autumn season beginning. Plants prepare for winter by shutting down certain functions. It's a normal cycle. The orange-skinned alien who had introduced himself as Keith Vore, the ecology specialist, displayed a holographic image of a tree with red leaves. These plants are clearly dying, he insisted. Our scans show cellular degradation and pigment breakdown. Jack picked up a bright red maple leaf from a display on the table. This isn't death, it's adaptation. The tree is pulling nutrients back into its trunk and roots to survive the winter. He handed the leaf to Zira, who hesitantly accepted it, holding it as if it might bite. You allow younglings to handle dead biological matter? Asked a thin gray alien named Prendox. It's just a leaf, Jack said with a shrug. And you say these conditions will worsen? Dr. Leuven asked. Lower temperatures? Precipitation in solid form? Snow, Olivia confirmed. But that's still a few weeks away in this region. How do humans survive such extremes? Asked the only alien who hadn't yet spoken, a bulky figure whose suit seemed heavier than the others. We adapt, Jack said simply. We build shelters, wear different clothing, adjust our activities. Humans have lived in much harsher environments than Yellowstone, in autumn. Dr. Leuven tapped something into her device. Tomorrow we will begin field observations. Tonight we must recalibrate our protection suits for the expected conditions. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. Jack waited by the trailhead as the alien delegation filed out of their temporary quarters. Their suits now looked bulkier, with additional layers and equipment. Good morning, Jack called cheerfully. Perfect day for a hike. About 50 degrees Fahrenheit, clear skies, light breeze. 50 degrees? Gasped Kethvor. How are you not freezing? Jack looked down at his light jacket. This is pleasant hiking weather. I'd overheat in anything warmer. As they walked the trail, Jack pointed out signs of autumn. Squirrels gathering nuts, bears eating extra to prepare for hibernation, and the changing colors of the forest. The aliens recorded everything, their instruments constantly whirring and beeping. Near a stream, they stopped to rest. Jack pulled out a water bottle and took a drink. The aliens watched with what seemed like horror. You consume dihydrogen monoxide, directly? Asked Prendox. Water? Sure. Want some? Jack offered the bottle. Zira moved closer, curious despite her colleagues' warnings. Our research indicates this substance is corrosive to many materials. But not to humans, Olivia explained. Water makes up about 60% of our bodies. This revelation caused such consternation that they had to pause the expedition while the aliens huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own language. When they finally resumed walking, a deer bounded across the path ahead. Kethvor nearly fell backward in surprise. Predator! He gasped. Jack couldn't help laughing. That's just a deer. Herbivore. Completely harmless. Its movement speed is alarming, Dr. Leuven noted, and its size could cause significant damage on impact. As the day wore on, the aliens documented dozens of hazards that Jack had never considered dangerous. Pine cones falling from trees, a gentle slope that required careful footing, even a butterfly that landed briefly on Zira's suit, causing her to freeze in place until Jack assured her it was harmless. By evening, as they returned to the facility, Dr. Leuven looked troubled. Mr. Holloway, tomorrow's weather forecast indicates a temperature drop and possible precipitation. Just a light rain, Jack confirmed. Nothing to worry about. On the contrary, the scientist replied, we will need to observe how humans and local wildlife respond to these changing conditions. It is, she paused, central to understanding how life persists on a Class 13 world. Zira lingered behind as the others entered the facility. Jack Holloway, she said quietly. Is it true that soon the precipitation will freeze and cover everything? In white crystals? Snow? Yes, in a few weeks probably. Her eyes widened behind her helmet. And humans play in this frozen precipitation? Jack smiled. We build snowmen, have snowball fights, go skiing. It's fun. Fun, she repeated, as if learning a new and puzzling concept. I look forward to understanding this perspective. Inside, Olivia was receiving an urgent message from the lunar base. Director Powell's face looked grim on the screen. Dr. Martinez, we have a situation. A group calling themselves Earth First is protesting the alien presence. They've published manifests claiming the Death World classification is a prelude to invasion. Security has been increased, but be vigilant. These people may target your location. Olivia glanced toward the aliens, busy with their data. Understood, we'll take precautions. Outside the window, the first raindrops began to fall, sparkling in the fading light. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, both from Earth's changing weather and from those who feared the changes these visitors might bring to human society. Rain tapped against the windows of the research facility. The alien scientists huddled inside, watching water stream down the glass. Their instruments beeped constantly, measuring the changing conditions outside. Acid falling from the sky. Muttered Kethfor, the ecology specialist. And the humans act as if this is normal. Jack entered the room, shaking water from his jacket. The alien stepped back. Beautiful day for a hike, he said cheerfully. Dr. Louvain's eyes widened. You went outside? In this? Just a light rain, Jack said. Perfect weather for checking. The trails. Some get slippery when wet. Olivia joined them, carrying data tablets. Today we'll review how Earth's wildlife adapts to seasonal changes. Then tomorrow, if the weather clears, we'll take a camping trip. Camping, asked Zira. What is this concept? Sleeping outdoors, Jack explained. Intense. It's a good way to experience nature up close. The aliens exchanged alarmed looks. Prendox, the thin gray alien, stepped forward. You deliberately sleep in the wilderness? Without permanent shelter or security systems? That's the idea, Jack smiled. Don't worry. I've packed everything we'll need. While Jack prepared for the expedition, Olivia led the aliens through a presentation on Earth's seasonal cycles. She showed images of forests in summer, autumn, winter, and spring. These cannot be the same location, Dr. Louvain insisted, looking at snow-covered trees. They are, Olivia confirmed. The same forest through our 4 seasons. Zira leaned forward, fascinated. And life continues through all these phases? Life doesn't just continue. It depends on these changes, Olivia explained. Many plants need a cold period to properly grow. Animals adapt their behaviors, their diets, even their bodies. Like humans changing their outer coverings, Zira observed. Exactly, Olivia nodded. Clothing is one way we adapt. By afternoon, the rain had stopped. Jack announced that conditions were perfect for their overnight expedition. The aliens reluctantly followed him to a clearing where several tents had been set up. Your temporary shelters appear inadequate, Dr. Louvain observed, poking at a tent with one slender finger. They keep the rain out and the warmth in, Jack assured her. That's all we need. As evening approached, Jack built a small campfire. The aliens were initially alarmed by the open flame but gradually moved closer, drawn by its warmth as the temperature dropped. This is how humans survived before technology, Jack explained, roasting marshmallows on sticks. Fire for warmth, cooking, and protection. Protection from what? Asked Kethfor nervously. A distant wolf howl answered his question. The aliens froze. Wolves, Jack said calmly. They rarely approach humans. Nothing to worry about. Predators, whispered Prendox. Your world is filled with predators that hunt actively. That's part of Earth's balance, Olivia explained. Predators keep herbivore populations healthy. Everything has its place in the ecosystem. As darkness fell completely, Jack pointed to the sky. Stars shone brightly above them, more visible here than near the facility's lights. Your planet's axial tilt causes these seasonal changes? Dr. Louvain asked. her scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming her fear. Yes, Olivia confirmed. As Earth orbits the sun, different hemispheres receive different amounts of sunlight. Most civilized worlds correct their axial tilt, the bulky alien commented. It creates stability. But at what cost? Jack asked. Without seasons, you lose. All this. He gestured to the forest around them where leaves drifted down in the gentle breeze. The changes make Earth what it is. Zira moved away from the group, captivated by a falling leaf. She caught it in her gloved hand, studying its red-orange color. These patterns, they're beautiful, she said softly. Back at the research facility, Security Officer Greg Harris noticed a perimeter alarm blinking on his monitor. He zoomed in the camera to see 3 figures in dark clothing approaching one of the alien monitoring stations set up at the edge of the forest. "This is Yellowstone Security," he called into his radio. "Unauthorized personnel near the north sensor array." No response came. Greg grabbed his jacket and flashlight. He needed to check it out himself. At the campsite, the group was preparing to sleep when the first rumble of thunder sounded in the distance. The aliens immediately went on alert. "Atmospheric electrical discharge," Prendock said, checking his instruments. "Highly dangerous." "Just a thunderstorm," Jack reassured them. "We're perfectly safe in the tents." As if nature wanted to test his words, the wind picked up suddenly. Rain began to fall, lightly at first, then in heavy sheets. Lightning flashed, followed by a crack of thunder that made the aliens jump. "Everyone into the tents," Jack called over the rising wind. "Quick but calm." The aliens scrambled to obey, all except Zira, who stood transfixed by the storm's power. Olivia gently guided her toward a tent. "Earth's weather patterns are so dynamic," Zira said, wonder in her voice. "On my world, such conditions would trigger emergency protocols." Inside the largest tent, Jack listened to the rain pounding the fabric. The aliens huddled together, their instruments beeping frantically. "Our protective suits are registering multiple hazards," Dr. Louven said. "Temperature drops, electrical activity, wind velocities increasing." "This is a moderate storm," Jack explained. "Not even close to Earth's extremes." "There are worse conditions than this?" gasped Kethvor. Jack nodded. "Hurricanes, blizzards, tornadoes. But humans have survived it all." "How?" asked Zira. "Without advanced technology or biological modifications." "Adaptation," Olivia said simply. "We learn, we adjust, we overcome. It's what humans do best." As the storm intensified, Jack and Olivia worked to secure the campsite. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans moved efficiently in the harsh conditions, adjusting tent stakes and covering equipment. "They show no fear," Dr. Louven noted. "Only competence." "Perhaps this is why they thrive on a death world," Zira suggested. "They expect challenges and prepare for them." Meanwhile, at the monitoring station, Greg discovered the equipment had been tampered with. A crude message was spray-painted on the metal housing: "Earth first, aliens go home." As he reached for his radio to report the vandalism, a sharp pain exploded in the back of his head. He collapsed to the ground as 3 figures stood over him. "That takes care of the security," one said. "Now let's send these aliens a message they can't ignore." Back at the campsite, the storm began to ease. Jack stepped outside, breathing in the fresh, rain-washed air. "Storm's passing," he announced. "Everyone okay?" The aliens emerged cautiously from their tents. Their suits were muddy, and they moved with obvious discomfort, but they had survived. "Is this typical of your seasonal transitions?" Dr. Louven asked, her voice steadier than Jack expected. "Pretty typical," he confirmed. "Weather gets more unstable during changes of season." As dawn broke, casting golden light across the wet forest, Zira approached Jack. "I wish to understand something," she said quietly. "Humans speak of enjoying these changes, even the dangerous ones. How is this possible?" Jack pointed to the forest, where morning mist rose between the trees, glowing in the sunlight. "Because with all the danger comes beauty," he said. "And one Thing we've learned on Earth, the most beautiful things often come after the storm. The first snowflake landed on Dr. Leuven's clear helmet visor. She flinched as if struck. More snowflakes followed, dancing in the cold November air. The alien scientists huddled together outside their research facility. All instruments pointed at the sky. Crystallized water, whispered Kethfor, falling from the clouds. Snow, Jack said, smiling as he held out his bare hand to catch the flakes. First of the season. It had been 6 weeks since the aliens arrived. In that time, they had watched autumn fully transform Yellowstone. The brilliant red and gold leaves had mostly fallen. The air had grown steadily colder. Animals had retreated to their winter shelters or migrated south. The attack on their monitoring station had put everyone on higher alert. Security patrols now accompanied the aliens on all field trips. Greg Harris had recovered from his concussion, but the Earth First group remained at large. Despite these concerns, the Scientific Assessment Committee had continued their work. Now they faced the most extreme transformation yet, winter's arrival. You say this solid precipitation will eventually cover everything? Dr. Leuven asked. Several feet deep in some areas, Olivia confirmed. Parts of Yellowstone will be under snow until spring. And yet humans continue to visit this place? Prendox asked, his thin frame seeming to shiver even inside his protective suit. Absolutely, Jack said. Winter tourism is popular. Skiing, snowboarding, snowmobiling. People love winter activities. The aliens had split into 2 clear factions during their stay. Dr. Leuven, Kethfor, and 2 others maintained that Earth was too dangerous for regular interstellar contact. They documented every hazard meticulously. Freezing temperatures, ice-covered lakes, shortened daylight hours, and the constant threat of snowstorms. Zira led the opposing view, joined by Prendox and the bulky alien named Grull. They had begun to see Earth's seasonal variations as a source of resilience rather than just danger. Zira especially had shown growing fascination with humans' adaptability. I believe we must reconsider the Class 13 designation, Zira had suggested, during their last committee meeting. Impossible, Dr. Leuven had replied firmly. The classification is based on objective measurements, not subjective impressions. Now, as the snow began to fall more heavily, the committee retreated inside the research facility. Through the windows, they watched the landscape slowly transform. The monitoring stations report atmospheric temperature continuing to drop, Kethfor announced, checking his data tablet. Conditions will soon be lethal to most galactic species. Time for a demonstration, Jack said, pulling winter clothes from a storage locker. Let's show you how humans handle snow. The aliens watched in disbelief as Jack, Olivia, and 2 security officers geared up in boots, coats, gloves, and hats. Mere fabric cannot protect against such cold, Dr. Leuven insisted. Watch us, Olivia replied with a smile. Outside, the snow was falling steadily. The humans walked easily through it, their breath visible in the cold air. Jack bent down, packed a snowball, and tossed it playfully at a tree. You use the frozen precipitation as a projectile? Grull asked, his deep voice rumbling through his translator. For fun, Jack explained. Snowball fights are a winter tradition. Zira moved closer to the door. I wish to try this. Absolutely not, Dr. Leuven ordered. Direct contact with frozen dihydrogen monoxide could damage your epidermal layers. Perhaps, with proper protection, Zira persisted, looking at the human's gloves. The debate was interrupted by an urgent call from the lunar base. Director Powell's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. Dr. Martinez, we've intercepted communications from Earth First. They're planning something big, possibly an attack on your location. We're sending additional security, but they won't arrive until tomorrow. Understanding, Olivia said. We'll increase patrols immediately. After the call ended, Security Chief Laura Bell doubled the guards around the perimeter. We should cancel all field activities until the reinforcements arrive, she advised. Jack looked out at the snowfall. But the first significant snow is a crucial observation point. The committee needs to see how the ecosystem responds. Perhaps a compromise, Olivia suggested. One short observation trip close to the facility with maximum security. 2 hours later, Jack led a small group to a nearby ridge. The snow had accumulated to about 3 inches, transforming the landscape into a winter wonderland. The aliens moved cautiously, their suits upgraded with additional heating elements. Notice how some animals leave tracks in the snow, Jack pointed out. That helps predators and researchers alike. A survival disadvantage, noted Dr. Louven. But also, an advantage for finding food or mates, Zira countered. Earth's challenges create opportunities. As they crested the ridge, a magnificent view opened before them. The valley below was blanketed in white, with pine trees standing dark against the snow. A frozen lake gleamed in the distance. This is... Zira paused, searching for the right word. Magnificent. Even Dr. Louven seemed momentarily speechless. The peaceful moment was shattered by shouts from behind them. 3 security guards ran toward them, weapons drawn. "Intruders at the facility," Laura called. "We need to get you all back immediately." As they hurried down the ridge, an explosion sounded in the distance. Smoke rose from one of the outer buildings of the research complex. "Earth first," Olivia said grimly. "They've made their move." The group rushed toward a different entrance, hoping to avoid the attackers. As they approached the facility, 5 figures in winter camouflage stepped out from behind trees blocking their path. "Stop right there," ordered a man with a scarf covering his face. "You aliens have no right to be on our planet." "We come in peace," Dr. Louven said, stepping forward. "We are scientists, not invaders." "You classify Earth as a death world," another attacker shouted. "We know what that means. You're scouting us for quarantine or worse." "That's not true," Olivia insisted. "They're trying to understand Earth, not harm it." One of the attackers raised what looked like a homemade electronic device. "This EMP will fry your suit's systems," he threatened. "Let's see how well you aliens do in our deadly environment." Security Chief Laura and her officers aimed their weapons. "Drop that device now," she ordered. Chaos erupted. The attackers scattered. Security pursued them. In the confusion, Zira became separated from the group. One attacker cornered her, against a snowbank. "Your people will never respect Earth," he growled, activating the EMP device. A pulse of energy washed over Zira's suit. Warning lights flashed inside her helmet as systems failed. The temperature regulation shut down immediately. Oxygen recyclers faltered. Jack spotted her predicament and tackled the attacker from behind. They tumbled into the snow as Laura arrived to make the arrest. "Zira," Jack called, rushing to the alien. "Are you okay?" Inside her helmet, Zira fought rising panic. Her suit was failing. According to everything she had been taught, exposure to Earth's atmosphere would be fatal within minutes. Yet without functioning systems, she had no choice. With trembling hands, she reached for her helmet seals. "No!" Dr. Louven cried, seeing what she intended. "You'll die." Zira looked at the snow-covered world around her, at the humans who thrived in these conditions. She made her decision and removed her helmet. Cold air rushed against her blue skin. She gasped, then took a deeper breath. Her large eyes widened in shock. "I can breathe," she said, her voice now unfiltered by the translator. "The air, it's cold, but I'm still alive." Everyone stared in astonishment. Dr. Louven rushed forward, scanning Zira with a handheld device. "Impossible," she muttered. "Your physiology is showing no signs of distress. How can this be?" Zira carefully extended one bare hand and caught a snowflake. It melted against her skin. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "we have misunderstood Earth all along." The Galactic Concorde's main ship hovered in Earth's orbit, its iridescent hull reflecting sunlight back into space. Inside the grand meeting chamber, representatives from 7 alien species sat in a semicircle, facing the human delegation. Dr. Olivia Martinez stood beside Jack Holloway, both dressed in formal attire. After 3 months of study and the dramatic events at Yellowstone, the Galactic Committee had reconvened to deliver their final assessment of Earth. Ambassador Zell Tuer opened the proceedings. "We gather today to review the classification of planet Earth, designated Class 13 in our records. The Scientific Assessment Committee has completed their study and will present their findings. Dr. Louvain rose from her seat. Unlike before, she wore no protective suit. After Zira's discovery, the aliens had conducted extensive tests and found that Earth's atmosphere, while different from their homeworlds, was not harmful to their physiology. Honored representatives, Dr. Louvain began, our initial classification of Earth as a death world was based on standard metrics: gravity, atmospheric composition, temperature variations, and planetary instability. By these measurements alone, Earth remains a Class 13 world. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack felt his heart sink. After everything they had shown the committee, nothing had changed. But Dr. Louvain continued, "However, our time on Earth has revealed a fundamental flaw in our classification system. We measure danger based on stability. Earth is not dangerous because it is inherently hostile. It is dangerous because it is variable." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing Earth through its seasons. These seasonal changes, which we once viewed as catastrophic, are in fact the source of Earth's greatest strength: adaptation. Earth species, including humans, have not merely survived these changes, but have evolved to require them. Zira stepped forward, now recognized as the committee's expert on human culture. The seasonal cycles drive biological diversity, cultural innovation, and technological development. Humans do not simply endure their world, they celebrate its variations. Jack and Olivia exchanged hopeful glances. The aliens were beginning to understand. Dr. Louvain continued, "Therefore, we propose a reclassification. Earth will remain Class 13, but with a new designation: Crucible World, a planet that forges uniquely resilient life through environmental variability." The chamber erupted in discussion. One representative, a tall being with crystalline features, raised an objection. "If we change our classification system for one world, we undermine centuries of scientific consensus." "On the contrary," Zira replied, "we evolve our understanding. Isn't that what science demands?" Ambassador Zeltour called for order. "What practical implications would this reclassification have?" Dr. Louvain's four hands moved in careful gestures, as she explained. "First, Earth would become a priority for cultural exchange rather than quarantine. Second, humans would be recognized as valuable potential partners in space exploration due to their adaptability." She paused, looking directly at Olivia and Jack. "And third, we recommend the formation of a galactic exploration initiative with humans playing a central role." The final vote was close, but the reclassification passed. As the formal proceedings concluded, Ambassador Zeltour approached the human delegation. "Dr. Martinez, Mr. Holloway, your planet has changed our understanding of life itself. The Concord wishes to offer both of you positions in the new Exploration Initiative." Jack looked surprised. "Me? I'm just a park ranger." "Precisely," the ambassador said. "You understand how to navigate changing environments better than any scientist. We need that knowledge." Before they could respond, Zira approached, her expression urgent. "We've received a distress signal from my homeworld, Viridia. Our environmental stabilizers are failing. After generations of perfect stability, our people don't know how to adapt to even minor changes." "What does that mean for your planet?" Olivia asked. "Extinction, potentially," Zira said quietly. "Unless we can learn to adapt quickly. We need humans' help." Jack thought about Yellowstone, about the endless cycle of seasons he had guided people through, about how plants and animals changed their behaviors to survive winter, then flourished again in spring. "Adaptation isn't just about technology," he said. "It's about understanding the rhythm of change. I think we can help with that." 2 months later, Jack stood on the surface of Viridia, watching twin suns set over a landscape that had known perfect stability for 1,000 years. Beside him, Dr. Martinez consulted data on her tablet. "The temperature fluctuations are minimal, by Earth standards," she observed. "Just 5 degrees between day and night, but it's enough to disrupt their ecosystem." The Viridian city before them was a marvel of perfect order. symmetrical buildings, carefully maintained gardens, and technology that had eliminated all environmental variation. Until now. Sierra joined them, leading a group of her people. These are our agricultural scientists. They wish to learn how Earth plants adapt to seasonal changes. The first lesson is simple, Jack said. Not everything needs to survive unchanged. Some plants die back in winter but leave seeds for spring. Others lose their leaves but keep their roots safe. Death as part of life, one Viridian scientist said uncertainly. A difficult concept for us. Not death, Jack corrected. Transformation. That's what Earth taught me. Nothing really ends. It just changes form. Over the following weeks, Jack helped establish experimental gardens where Viridian plants could be exposed to gentle variations in temperature, light, and water. Some died, but others showed surprising resilience when given the chance to adapt. Meanwhile, Olivia worked with Viridian engineers to design buildings and systems that could adjust to change rather than fight against it. Your people have been using enormous energy to maintain perfect stability, she explained to Dr. Leuven, who had joined the project. Instead, you could work with natural cycles using less energy and becoming more resilient. On her last evening before returning to Earth for consultation, Olivia found Jack sitting on a hillside, watching the unfamiliar stars. Do you miss Earth? She asked. Every day, he admitted, especially now. It's spring in Yellowstone. The snow is melting, animals are emerging from hibernation, new leaves are budding. The cycle begins again, Olivia said. Jack nodded. That's what makes Earth special. It never stays the same, but it always comes back. Death and rebirth over and over. He looked out at the Viridian landscape, where small changes were already visible. Experimental gardens with plants of different heights, buildings being modified to move with the winds rather than stand rigid against them. They'll make it, he said. They just need to learn what every child on Earth knows instinctively. How to bend instead of break. In orbit above them, a galactic Concorde ship prepared to depart for a newly discovered system. Its crew included representatives from 12 species, including 3 humans. Their mission? To explore worlds too variable for traditional Concorde. Exploration teams. On its side, a new insignia had been painted, Earth's seasonal cycle represented by 4 interconnected circles, with the words Class 13, Crucible World, displayed proudly beneath it. The universe, like Earth, was constantly changing. And now, thanks to a planet that changed with the seasons, the galaxy was finally learning how to change with it.